The show showcases Plankton in the chum bucket. Ever since Plankton was a little boy, he has always dreamed of taking over the world, and after 25 years of trials and many failures, he finally came up with Operation Success. The plan was to steal the Krabby Patty formula, then take over the Krusty Krab from Mr. Krabs. After that he would take over Bikini Bottom, and then he would be able to take over the world. He spied at the Krusty Krab and sees everyone leaving. He then suits up and got ready to embark on his mission. He called out to Karen, his computer wife, but she was nowhere to be found. He searched for her and sees her hanging around with the gal pals. He was angry Karen had forgotten about his mission, and he flew off through the ceiling. Meanwhile, Karen was hanging out with Pearl, Sandy, and Mrs. Puff. Karen then reveals that she was going to unleash an impending terror of her own and steal the Krabby Patty formula, making the girls terrified. Plankton arrived just at that moment. He tells Karen it was time to go on their mission, and Karen follows him to the Krusty Krab, while the girls went to see a movie. Plankton got to the Krusty Krab and was ready to embark on his mission. However, Mr. Krabs was aware of his plan and was watching him through the security cameras. Mr. Krabs called out to SpongeBob and shows him the video of Plankton, who was about to steal the Krabby Patty formula. He said he has watched Plankton tried many times and failed, but he thinks Plankton was going to be successful this time. In the meantime, Plankton tells Karen to give him a lift in the butt. Karen was upset that she was just his mechanical support and doesn't get to play a role in the mission. She lifted him, and he tells her to roll herself away, and it made her angry. Plankton cut his way through the wall and made his way inside in search of his secret formula. Meanwhile, Karen was pissed that if only Plankton listens to her just once, then his mission was going to be successful. Plankton eventually finds the formula locked away in a safe. He was about to break through, and just then, he was captured in a glass cup by Mr. Krabs and was thrown out, where he landed at the door of the chump bucket. Depressed that his plans had failed again, he opened the door and was surprised to see people dining in his restaurant, not knowing what was going on as he felt it was a dream. Karen explains to Plankton that she calculated that if everyone ate at his restaurant, he won't need to steal the Krabby Patty formula. So she made a contemporary touch with a special recipe, and they would be open for 24 hours with plan to spread across the world. However, Plankton was more concerned about stealing the formula. Karen reminds him that his plan hasn't worked for years. She also tells him if he doesn't listen to her, then that would be the last time she would ever give him advice. Plankton stopped to think about it and disagrees with her plan. He began to destroy everything Karen had set up in the restaurant, making Karen to grow even angrier. He smashed all the decorations and brought out a flamethrower, using it to chase everyone out. SpongeBob showed up holding a pack of juice, and he set flame to his feet. SpongeBob was able to quench the flames in the sand. He then went back to listen to what was going on between Plankton and Karen. Meanwhile, Karen was trying to talk to Plankton, but he wasn't listening and didn't seem to care. She became angry and took out the empathy chip embedded in her motherboard. Plankton realized what she was doing and begs her, but it was too late, and she throws him out of the chum bucket. He hit SpongeBob and knocked him off, and they both fell to the ground. Karen then magnetized the chump bucket, suspending it in midair. Karen comes out, and there she began transforming into a Super Karen, now having 3 computer heads. One named Super Sneaky Karen, the other Super Smart Karen, and the other Super Evil Karen. She then tells Plankton and SpongeBob it was time for her to embark on her mission for world domination. She tells them of her plans of making the world her fortress, going to the outside world, and eventually to the universe, making it one, and then she consumes the sun. At that moment, she was going to fry out Plankton and they had to run away. However, she chased after them but then realized it wasn't worth it as world domination was her first priority. Meanwhile, Mr. Krabs was in the office dreaming about money, when suddenly he was disturbed by the noise of his restaurant being carried away by Karen's magnetic field, which was consuming everything it came across in its way. He tried to hold it back, but he was not strong enough. He also noticed Karen had gone full Hydra, and she was consuming everything metal all over Bikini Bottom. SpongeBob and Plankton ran into the mart and fell into a mash of potatoes. SpongeBob asked Plankton what he did to Karen to make her so angry. However, Plankton doesn't seem to have an idea, and perhaps he must have blocked it out of his head. He asked SpongeBob to help him if there was a way to stop Karen and destroy her for good. SpongeBob then tells Plankton he has a way to bring it out from his memory. He brought out his junior psychiatrist kit, pulling out a chair from the inside. He then held a clock to his face and hypnotized Plankton, jogging into his memories. Plankton was born in a family where all they did was drink and marry away. He turned out to be the smartest one of them all and dreamed of world domination. He always felt alone as none of his brothers were ready to share in his dreams and tagged him as a sore loser. However, one day he built a computer out of a potato and calculator, which came alive, and he named it Karen. He and Karen became best friend, and they did everything together, share the same clothes, and went to the games together. Then one day, Plankton tells his family he and Karen were going to college, and they all laughed heavily at him. However, he tells them before leaving he was planning to dominate the world, and one day he would be back to destroy them all. Back to the present, Plankton remembers how he was going to stop Karen. He recalls the calculator was the brain, and he left it back at the university. And he was going back to college to find it. However, Karen had already caught up to them at the mart and was taking the building. SpongeBob and Plankton were thrown to the edge and almost got hit by knives and other cutleries. They were able to jump off just before it could reach the magnetic field. Meanwhile, Karen was already heading towards the center of the city. The police had already geared up and were ready to face Karen. Inspector Krabs gave the order and they fired multiple bombs at Karen. And she shuts down. However, just when they celebrated, Karen flew into her monster machine she made from all the metals she acquired from the city. The police all ran away, leaving Inspector Krabs. She picked up the anchor and turned it into her arm. In the meantime, SpongeBob and Plankton arrived at the Bikini State University, and they went inside. It was a big place, and Plankton had no idea where he could find the remains of Karen. SpongeBob brought out his psychiatrist kit once again and hypnotized Plankton. It takes us back to the time Plankton first arrived at the college, and at first it felt like a dream come true. However, it didn't turn out to be how he was expecting. His first assignment was to create a freeze gun, which he failed. He tried out in science class and art class and failed. Also, in every other class. He got home one day and sees Karen doing his assignment on the computer. Then he had an idea that if he wanted to succeed, he needed to upgrade Karen. He used 4 computer chips to keep her versatile personality in form, a smart chip to keep her in form, an evil chip so she could be just like him, a snaggy chip to be sassy, and then an empathy chip so she can feel his pain. He then called out to her, and she was able to speak. Since she now has a voice, he then gives her a new body. Together they built the freeze gun, and it was a success. Back to the present, Plankton tells SpongeBob he remembers where he left the initial parts of Karen. They went into his former room, his dorm, and he opened his closet, which was filled with a lot of his old stuff, including his roommate who was still seen to be frozen in the icebox. Plankton eventually found the original Karen, and was ready to take the next step of the plan of reaching the basement of the chum bucket. At that moment, the electric field was already consuming the school, and it swallowed both of them, sending them through the stairs and down to the basement. The basement was filled with Plankton's inventions over the years which he used to try and steal the Krabby Patty formula. He went to the freeze gun and accidentally shot Plankton, freezing him in the icebox. SpongeBob then picked up Plankton and was going to hypnotize him to know what happened next after he invented Karen. The freeze gun was a success, and they decided to build a bigger one to invade the surface world. They were ready and embark on their mission. However, on getting to the surface, they realized the surface people were a lot bigger than they thought, and they were no match for them, so they had to retreat. However, the surface person shovels them up in a bucket and threw them back into the ocean. Plankton was feeling devastated that his mission has failed. They went across the street to the Krusty Krab, but Plankton couldn't find the appetite to eat. Just then, he overheard Mr. Krabs telling a customer that his secret Krabby Patty formula was going to take over the world. At that moment, she had an idea and shared it with Karen. He was going to steal the formula and take over Bikini Bottom and then take over the world. Karen jerked at the idea as he set up the bucket as his new restaurant, the Chum Bucket. In the meantime, Plankton had already broken free from the icebox and was building another machine. He used the initial parts to build a new Karen. That was his plan all along, and he was going to use it to fight against the evil Karen, steal the secret formula, and take over the world. He took the new Karen to the war machine. He called out to the evil Karen, and she came out of the war machine to face him. The new Karen and evil Karen were about to engage in a huge confrontation, but suddenly, they began dancing together. Since Plankton made the new Karen from the parts of the old Karen, that means they were one. And all thanks to him, they were going to be stronger as they began to merge together. SpongeBob and Plankton ran for their lives, but there was nowhere to run, as the whole Bikini Bottom has been wiped out. SpongeBob blames Plankton for being the cause of all this, since he lied to him about needing his help to get back with the old Karen. He then called Plankton a jerk and ran off. Karen caught up to Plankton at that moment, and was going to blast him with the freeze gun. Plankton puts on his blindfolds, and was ready to face his death. However, SpongeBob showed up with the girl pals to save Plankton. SpongeBob tells Plankton he was still a jerk, but he couldn't leave him to die. Meanwhile, Karen has completed the war station she was building, and was ready to start destroying the world. Mrs. Puff drove them at top speed, and they arrived at their secret relaxation center. Mrs. Puff, Sandy, and Pearl were angry at Plankton and asked him what he did to Karen to make her so angry. He revealed to them that after he sent everyone out of the chum bucket with his flamethrower, Karen had removed her empathy chip and thrown it away. The girls were shocked to hear this, knowing Karen wouldn't feel anything for anyone. SpongeBob showed up at that moment, holding the empathy chip he found lying around. The girls told Plankton they had coffee with Karen every day, and all she does was complain about Plankton. However, if he truly loves Karen as he claims, he should install the empathy chip and apologize to her. However, Plankton was finding it hard to say he was sorry, so Sandy took the empathy chip and installed it into Plankton's brain. Plankton then drifted into the empathy world where he saw all the times he failed Karen and made her angry, and the reason why she left. Plankton eventually said the words that he was sorry, and he was ready to find Karen and apologize to her. The girl pals came across Karen's mega station. They found an opening beneath the station and decided to use it as an entrance. However, it turned out to be a booby trap. Pearl used a flame bottle, and she cut the throat of the metal to make an opening. Meanwhile, Karen discovered the station had been infiltrated by the gal pals. She divided each of the computer chips to take on the girl pals. SpongeBob and Plankton came across the Krusty Krab. He didn't hesitate as he went straight inside. Just then they found Patrick sitting with his hot dog. Patrick and SpongeBob hugged each other, with Plankton stick to his belly. They were being pulled away by the girl pals, and they explained to Patrick that they need to get Plankton to Karen so he can apologize to her and stop her from reaching the surface. At that moment, the fourth Karen showed up from the top, while Karen ordered the other chips to destroy them all. The girl pals face the chips, while SpongeBob and Patrick find a way to get Plankton to Karen so he can apologize. The girls got into a battle with the chips which lasted for minutes, and eventually they were able to take out all of them. Meanwhile, Plankton and SpongeBob got to the door to the control room, and at that moment, the empathy chip was already fried up, and Plankton was slowly becoming his evil self. Plankton went alone to meet Karen, while SpongeBob and Patrick made their way to the engine room. SpongeBob and Patrick fell into the engine room, which was full of potatoes. At that moment, SpongeBob found his spatula and an idea. Plankton made his way to meet Karen and began to apologize for being a jerk. But she tells him it was the empathy chip working and was going to squash him with the iron boot. However, Plankton removed the empathy chip and sincerely apologized to Karen. Karen then went to the vault and gave Plankton the secret Krabby Patty formula that he has always wanted. However, he threw the secret formula away and tells Karen he realized that she was the formula he needed. Karen was moved to tears and accepted his apology. They kissed each other, and then she puts him on a seat which she had reserved for him if he ever got his head together. They both got ready to embark on the mission that they had always wanted, to take over the world. They arrived at the surface, and the people at the beach became terrified on seeing the war machine. Meanwhile, Karen and Plankton pushed the button and nothing happened. Plankton soon realized SpongeBob must have messed with the machine and apologized to Karen, but she doesn't seem to be angry. The machine was destroyed, and the surface people returned back to the beach to have fun. Meanwhile, Bikini Bottom was gradually being restored to its former state, and every house were being put back in place, where they used to be. The chum bucket was also back, and the entire residents were angry and wanted to banish them. However, SpongeBob came to their rescue and pleaded on their behalf. Mr. Krabs was still angry and wanted his revenge. At that moment, his money returned to him, and he became happy. Everyone was seen to be happy and rejoicing. And that's where the movie ended. Thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe to It's Mythical for more mind-blowing recaps like this. Thanks for watching.